Hey sports card fans, it's John Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to take a look at the top 10 PSA vintage baseball card sales on eBay for cards from the 1980s for the month of January 2024. Now, like I've been doing for the other two videos in this sort of series, taking a look at the cards from the 1940s and then the sales for cards from the 1950s through 1970s. If there are any cards that show up more than once on this top 10 list, I'm not going to be including them in the top 10 list. I will note them if there are any other significant sales of that card, but moving forward, the top 10 list will consist of 10 different cards. So for the month of January, when we get to the 1980s, there always seems to be some pretty interesting cards. January is no exception. And this month also includes a few new record high sales for those cards. So let's go check out the top 10 list. Coming in at number 10, we have this 1987 Leaf Barry Bonds rookie card in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 25th for $2,889. It was an auction. There were 39 bids. The current VCP average price is $2,733. The record high for a PSA 10 was $4,500 back in February of 2021 through eBay. Now, for this 87 Leaf Barry Bonds, there have been 587 that have been graded a PSA 9. However, this is only one of 98 that have been graded a PSA 10. At number 9, we have this 1982 Fleer Cal Ripken Jr. rookie card in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 14th for $2,950. It was an auction. There were 25 bids and sold for around $500 above the current VCP average price of $2,490. The record high sale for a PSA 10 was $3,500 back in February of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. Now, there have been a little over 2,900 graded a PSA 9, but only 310 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 8, we have this 1983 Topps Tony Gwynn rookie card in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 9th for $3,150. It was an auction. There were 38 bids and sold for just a little bit above the current VCP average price of $2,961. The record high sale for a PSA 10 was $4,750 back in February of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay. Now, there have been over 5,500 graded a PSA 9, but only 725 have received a PSA 10 label. And there was also one other significant sale of the Tony Gwynn rookie card. This one sold on January 3rd for $2,868 for that PSA 10 example. At number 7, we have the 1984 Don Mattingly rookie card in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 4th for $3,700. It was a buy it now. The current VCP average price is $3,318. However, this particular sale was not in VCP's database. The record high sale for a PSA 10 was $6,500 back in March of 2021 through eBay. There have been over 3,400 graded a PSA 9, but only about 10% of that, 320, have been graded a PSA 10. At number 6, we have this 1980 Topps Bill Bonham in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 15th for $4,106. It was an auction. There were 9 bids. And that is the current VCP average price for a PSA 10 and represents a new record high price for that card. Previous high sale, and and that's not a typo, was only $81 back in March of 2012, a little over 10 years ago on eBay. Now, it's a low population card, even in a PSA 9, only 23 graded copies. This PSA 10 here is one of only 4 that have received that grade. At number 5, we have this 1981 Topps Pete Rose in a PSA 10. Here's my opportunity here for a little bit of commentary. I'm always interested in seeing some of these vintage PSA 10 cards, and I understand technically the rule when looking at the back of the card. PSA 10 I think could still have maybe 90-10 centering or 80-20, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. If you look at the back of this card, way off center, left to right, even the front looks like it has a little diamond centering. Personally, to me, at most this would be a PSA 9, but it received a PSA 10 grade. This one sold on January 7th for $5,100. It was an auction. There were 26 bids. The current VCP average price is $5,305. Now, the record high sale also took place in January. However, does not appear on this list because the auction was through memory lane, and this top 10 list is looking at eBay sales. So 2 sales in January, one for $5,100 here on eBay, and another one for just over $5,500, a new record high sale through memory lane. Now, there have been 477 graded a PSA 9, but only 32 have been graded a PSA 10. At number 4, we have this 1986 Donruss Highlights Bo Jackson, but what makes this card special is that this is the error version or parallel version. There's not a whole lot of information on this, but this is the highlights in white version. So within that little baseball icon and the highlights and the border above and below where it says Bo Jackson longest home run in Royal Stadium, that is white as opposed to yellow. Now, I know for my Wade Boggs collection, he has actually 2 cards in this set. I do have both white letter variations, and they are extremely hard to find. This particular Bo Jackson card has a total graded population with PSA of only 17. I've heard rumors that there may only be as few as 20 that have been found with the white letter variation. So this indeed is a very rare Bo Jackson card. This one sold on January 28th for $5,900. It was a buy it now. The current VCP average price is $4,115. This particular sale was not in VCP's database, but would represent a new record high price for this Bo Jackson card in a PSA 10. The previous high sale was $5,381 back in September of last year through memory lane. So that $5,900 purchase price, given the rarity of this card, is not unreasonable. In a PSA 9, there have only been 7, and there have only been 6 graded a PSA 10. And as I mentioned in PSA's total population report for this card, there have only been 17 total graded with the white highlight variation. At number 3, we have this 1980 Topps Willie Stargell in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 26th for $6,000. It was a best offer. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $6,593. However, this particular sale was not reported in VCP's database. The record high sale was $7,990 back in November of 2023 through eBay. Now, in a PSA 9, there have been 222 graded copies, but this one here is one of only 12 that have been graded a PSA 10. At number 2, we have this 1981 Topps Nolan Ryan in a PSA 10. This one sold on January 29th for $6,699. It was an auction. There were 32 bids. The current VCP average price is $4,890. So this sale represents a new record high price for a PSA 10 copy. The previous high sale was $5,948 back in October of 2021 through SCP auctions. Now there have been nearly 1,000 cards that have been graded a PSA 9. However, only 42 have been graded a PSA 10. And the number one selling card of the 1980s for January 2024 is this 1982 Topps Traded Cal Ripken Jr. in a PSA 10. This copy sold on January 31st for $7,200. It was a buy it now. The current VCP average price for a PSA 10 is $6,517. Now, this particular sale was not included in VCP's database. And this is one example here of how some card prices have fallen since the bubble period of early 2021. The record high sale for a PSA 10 was back in February of 2021 through a PWCC listing on eBay that sold for $20,101. Now, in a PSA 9, there have been just under 4,300 graded copies, but in a PSA 10, there have only been 410. There you go, the top 10 PSA vintage baseball card sales on eBay for cards from the 1980s for January 2024. As always, would love to know in the comments what you think about those cards that made this month's top 10 list. And with that, that's all I have for you. So until next time, thanks for watching.